All right, it's best of auto top-offs for 2019, and we're going to do the normal rundown. First, we're going to do, as voted by you guys, what is the most popular, most economical, most reliable, what else?
Yeah, we're going to do best when space counts, the most features, best for directly connecting to your RODI unit, and then I'll wrap it up with the best in show and what we want to see for 2020.
All right, so most popular as voted by you guys and what you guys are actually picking up in 2019, which one is it?
Most popular, not by you guys, also by us too, and what we're using around the tanks here at BRS. Heads and shoulders, the 3155 Toonsy osmolator. This one is like upwards of triple the amount that you guys are picking over all of the other ATOs that we carry.
Yeah, you know, and so this is, I feel like a broken record here because there's actually a lot of different areas where the more costly options are actually the most popular. And it's areas like where you're going to flood your floor or fill your tank full of fresh water is where you kind of invest in to make sure, you know, you don't have a failed unit. And like everything fails on a long enough timeline. But I got to tell you, I have never seen one of these fail in the on position, ever. And like we probably have, this is the only thing we use here, so there's got to be 50 of them running at the time. I've used them all in my tanks, I've never seen it. And so most popular is voted by you guys. And I'll just say, even though this one, which is its little brother, the Nano, is half the cost, 1/3 as many as the main unit. This is just such a popular unit with reefers. All right, so this is an important one, the most economical option for doing auto top off in your reef tank. What is it?
Yeah, there's we split this one two different ways, and that's because some are controllers only, where you choose your own pump, and then some are plug and play, pumps included, everything you need to go. And so for controller only options, there is a DIY version that's like an electrical box. It's like a project you can do at home. It is the DIY Aqua Hub. That comes in at like $45, $46, somewhere around there. You do have to kind of piece it together. Got a video on that, how to do that. But the next step up from that one being the most economical is the innovative marine hydrofill with titanium sensors.
Yeah, so the titanium sensors work on conductivity, so there's no moving parts or whatnot in the sensors, so that's pretty cool. That's what, $70? And this guy was actually, what, $46, the do-it-yourself one?
Yep.
The only thing I just want to set expectations a little bit is the do-it-yourself one is a lot of these have timers where it stays on for some period of time, right? The do-it-yourself one, if the float's moving with waves in the tank, it clicks on and off, on and off, on and off. And you hear the relay clicking. So you got to make sure to use it in an area where it like is real flat, like in the sump somewhere that's doesn't get a lot of waves. But if that's the case, you know, for $45, you can now get rid of the duty of evaporation. It's got two different float switch, a little, you know, mold hanging bracket for it, mold holder or something. You know, it is a cheap option, and it matches the price point, but it's kind of cool. What about the one that comes with a pump?
So those ones you do have to get your own pump for. If you want just out of the box ATO, that's the most economical choice for you, plug and play. It's the Toonsy Osmolator 3152, the Nano version.
Yep. So the Nano version, I will say, only works up to about 50 gallons. And the reason is because it uses a float switch here, which is, I don't really like moving parts as my primary sensor, but what it does is backs it up with a timer. And so the internal timer will, out of the box, be set for about an average of a 25-gallon tank. And then you can flip a little jumper in there, and it will turn it into like something appropriate for about as much water that will evaporate in a 50-gallon tank. So the timer being the backup, if it ever goes over that, it fails. The float switch fails, it goes over that. The timer will stop it, but it comes with the pump, right? And so in this case, at $97, even the $70 item's going to cost you a $30 pump to get it to run. So it's about the same cost, and you get the little magnetic eye, and it's pretty nice. Okay, so most reliable auto top off of 2019 and probably even decades before, which one is it?
Yeah, I mean, this one is right in line with the most popular too, because I want something that's reliable, especially in the case of overfilling my tank with fresh water or spilling on my floor. So with your popular vote, the most reliable vote also from us gets the Toonsy 3155. This osmolator is in about 95% of the tanks here around the office. And the only reason it's not in 100 is because we're testing some in different situations. But like you said, we've gone back and replaced them with these.
Yeah. So I had a couple different ones on the ULMs in my office, but ultimately, done testing them, I go back to what I trust the most, because I don't want floods in my floor. I don't want to mess up tanks. And I can tell you, on my first 90, I went through 2 of the wrong ones and flooded my floor with both of them, specifically because they used float switches in them, and they both got covered in salt creep. Eventually went to this guy, and I have not failed since. There's like 50 tanks plus that are running these things here. I've never, ever, ever seen one fail in the on position. I can't say that about like nearly any product here, even outside of auto top-offs. And so this is just the most reliable. Again, it actually operates on 2 different technologies. So instead of having 2 float switches, both of which fail for the same reasons, they can get a surge and get stuck together, salt creep. This one has an optical sensor, and then backed up with a moving part, and with the float sensor, and then backed up with the timer, right? And you can even change the flow speed inside the little box to back up how much is dosed during that timer. So all in all, just the most reliable option out there. Okay, so best of 2019, when space counts, it needs to be small. What is it?
Yeah, this one by far for me gets my vote, and that's the XP Aqua Duetto ATO. I mean, all there is to it is that optical sensor, a little pump, and the little control box. And so that means the only thing in my tank is that little optical sensor.
Yeah, this is as small as it possibly can get. So, you know, if you're in a little all-in-one tank, a little Pico, or you got very little room in your sump, or, you know, any scenario where it needs to be small, this is it. Has an optical sensor, but you can see the 2 little triangles or pyramids on there, so they're actually separate sensors in the same thing. And so there's a high level and a low level, or a backup, I should say. And so it is the smallest little auto top-off that we sell, and probably the best for those small installations. Okay, so this is a super interesting one. Auto top-off with the most features. 2019, what is it?
Yeah, this one might confuse you or confuse me. Like, what are features, you know, for auto top off? I want this thing to sense my low level, fill it up, and then sense my high level, and then shut off when it's outside of either one of those ranges. In which case, the Auto Aqua AWC auto water changer is not only an ATO, but I think the main point of this one is that it's an auto water changer. So it built in the ATO functionality with the auto water change to where when I start changing my water with this thing, that will shut my auto top off feature off. So it's not pumping fresh water in while I'm draining water out of the tank purposely and putting water back in, but then it'll reset it and become an ATO again. So it comes with 3 different pumps.
Yeah, in this case, I would definitely, you're just using, you know, optical sensors and whatnot to, you know, as a redundancy. So I would probably use, you know, size of the container for your saltwater bin as a redundancy to make sure you don't overdo either taking it out or putting it in. But yeah, I mean, this is really, really cool. My caution here is just because I haven't used it before, actually. So I don't really know the reliability on it. But like, what a cool little feature to add into your auto top-off. Does your water changes for you at the same time. Really, really cool, neat feature.
Yeah, and there's a video that I did that somebody on Ask BRStv had asked. So we did a video on, because these pumps for some people, depending on the size of your tank, just might not be enough for them for their water changes. And I can see using some small pumps like this in like 40 gallons and below, maybe 50 gallons or so, or depending on how much you want to change. But you can actually change these pumps out. They have the Auto Aqua Smart AC sockets that plug into this driver or this control box here, and then I get a full socket that I can put whatever size pump I need on there for my application, and basically do the same thing.
Very cool. All right, so this is an interesting one as well. So best auto top off if you're going to hook up your RODI system directly to your sump, right? Never-ending water supply hooked up directly to your sump. This is somewhat risky. So what is one of the best ones on the shelf here to do that?
Yeah, so reliability really counts here because it's an endless water supply. And so backed with our most reliable for 2019, it's the 3155, but you also add in the water valve solenoid. So this is actually what we used on the BRS 160. But I would highly recommend adding some sort of leak detection type of backup in there. So like the flow lock.
Yeah, so the way this works is you replace the pump with this little solenoid here, and it opens and closes and allows water from the RO system, or in their case, they actually suggest like a bucket, you know, that's gravity fed, that has a not never-ending water supply to it. But if you use it that way, you know, you can never haul around freshwater ever again. So there are a couple of things that I would suggest here, though. Is the first is, you know for sure that valve is going to fail. It's a moving part that's in there. If there's any calcium or anything, because it heats up a little bit, it will eventually get stuck. And if you treat it that way, that like it's never going to fail, it will fail you and your tank will suffer because of it. So there's a couple of different things. One, what I would do is put it into a float valve, drill a hole in your sump, either glass or plastic is just fine. You can drill a little teeny hole for a normal float valve like you would use in your top-off container, like you know, making fresh water or salt water. And then if that thing ever fails, the float will stop it. However, like in this case, I like 3 levels of redundancy. And so they make these little guys too. And so this is something that is mechanical and basically has a little cotton wad in the bottom of it. And what happens is if the cotton wad soaks up water, it flips this thing, and then all of a sudden it just shuts off the water supply. So super, super simple. You saw it right there, happen in front of me. There it goes. So in this case, this is a really, really cheap, easy way to make sure that if it detects actual water fail, the valve should fail, and the mechanical valve, you probably shouldn't be reefing if all 3 of those things fail on you. So that would be the way that I would personally hook up a system to a never-ending water supply, like an RO system. I'd say most people don't recommend doing that, but also, you know, some people like to push the, you know, venture forth and do the most aggressive things to make sure that they reduce their workload and make reefing more fun. Okay, so best in show 2019, I think you probably know at the moment you saw the table, it is definitely the Tunes oscillator.
Yeah, I mean, for popularity, the most reliable, and our choice for hooking directly up to RODI, and then just a variety of reasons and uses that we use it for here, this one definitely wins best in show.
I like the fact that other options exist in the world. It causes people to you know, innovate and whatnot, but in the end, man, this is, I don't even spend any time thinking about it anymore. When there's a handful of items that are just my go-to, and this is one of them. Okay, so my favorite part of all these episodes is what we'd like to see for 2020. I'll let you start.
Yeah, so right off the bat, accessibility for these Tunes oscillators in getting to that jumper box, because you do have to disassemble the control box on the Nano to get to the jumper. They can make that more accessible, just put it outside the box. And then same thing with the control knob on the 3155. These are controllable speed pump, and you don't have to hide it behind a box. I'll learn how to use it, just make it more accessible.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, there's a little jumper in here. So this is timed again for about a 25-gallon tank and would it evaporate. And if you want to change it to 50, you have to just kind of push the tabs in, pull it apart, and inside there's a little jumper you need to move. But most people wouldn't even know that jumper even existed unless you read every last page of the instructions, right? Now you guys know it exists. It's super easy to do. Push the little tabs in, pull it apart, move the jumper, and now it's ready for a 50-gallon tank. Same thing with the Tunes oscillator here. There's a little knob in there that changes the amount of power that goes to the pump. So you can change the speed at which it pumps, or even head height and whatnot. It's also something that you change if you're going to use the solenoid. There's directions in there, but like, there's no reason to hide the knob inside the blue box, man. Make it accessible. It's a feature. I would use it personally because I'm going to tune it to how much I need in most cases, just a little bit above. So make it available. Another thing that I would like to see in 2020 is somebody bring back the level lock. And I know I had to show you this because I've never heard of it.
Never heard of it, but now that I look at it, it's almost like a combination of a few of these different parts and pieces, some mechanical floats, and some of these different other things, but in one nice package.
I'm pretty certain Carlos will show you a picture of this thing here, but this is what it looks like. There is a little bracket that goes onto the side of your sump, and there's 2 little square bars that go inside of it. You can slide it up and mount down. Now, so what this is designed to do is allow you to hook up your RO system right up to your tank, or at least a bin of water or whatever, and it has a variety of fail-safes on it. So one of them, it had the float valve on there, so you can adjust the float and it'll just turn off automatically. The second one is right above that. If the float were ever to get stuck open and like not just keep allowing water out, there's a little float switch in there hooked up to a solenoid as well. And so in that case, if the float ever fails, the solenoid will hit, and then the switch will hit and then close off the solenoid, right? Now, what if you hooked it up to one of these things too? You know, now you got triple failure.
Yeah,
you
the
know,
whole
protection,
package.
right? So I don't know the full story, but that thing existed about like when bulk resupply came into existence. And I'm pretty certain the two guys that made it ended up not liking each other anymore, and it just like poofed into thin air.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a good idea.
Yeah, it was a great idea. Like we sold a mountain of them because it was just like something that everybody wanted. So if it isn't us, somebody bring back the level lock, because the level lock, it will make you rich. There you go. If you want to do something fun for the hobby, bring back the level lock. It was really, really cool. So what else would you like to see?
So one of the things that I want to see, and this is because I run typically larger tanks, like of 50 gallons plus, or tanks that evaporate more water or have more, you know, surface area that evaporates water faster. And some of these little pumps don't keep up with it or don't have the ability to keep up with it, in which case, let's see some bigger pump options. Maybe the ability to swap out different pump sizes, maybe just options with bigger pumps. But all in all, sometimes I need to push more water.
Yeah, so like the Tunes oscillator has an option for a switch socket, so you can actually just swap out the pump for this little adapter, and they'll just turn on an outlet for a larger pump. But it isn't cheap, and you got to buy both the switch, the pump and the switch socket outlet. It'd be nice if they just had a larger pump as well. Like this thing is adequate for a vast majority of people, right? But like if you got a giant tank and you're just burning through water, evaporation for whatever reason, like it'd be nice to not have to put all that effort, just get a slightly larger pump. So all of these options really should have, or all of them that have an included pump should have a cheaper option.
Yeah.
All right, so and related to that, I'd like the ability to tune the timer. So like with the oscillator here, it'd be awesome if like there is a timer in there, like it's on for 10 minutes and then it just turns off. It assumes that if it's been running for 10 minutes and it hasn't filled up the water, something must have gone wrong, right? Well, so for me, I'd like to tune it for two reasons. One, if my average, what I need it to do is only like 3 minutes, I'll set it for 5 instead of 10.
Right, okay.
It's probably not that big of a deal, but where it really is valuable for me is we do use this thing to auto top off the 160 here. And so sometimes, you know, the RO system's going so slow that you can actually top out 10 minutes pretty easy.
Right.
In our case, what we actually do is run the 150 auto water saver primarily just to make it produce water faster so this thing doesn't time out.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, if you could have the ability to tune the timer in some manner, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to see is like we live in this smart world. Half of the things that are coming out, the drivers, the controllers, the pumps, they're all smart too, and a lot of them have, you know, Wi-Fi or this, you know, ability to talk to the like the Internet of Things in your home, kind of like this connected tank. And I think we could, you know, bring that into the ATO sphere too, to where not only is it smart enough to, you know, control itself rather than some of these controls that are built in, but it's smart enough to like learn about the tank or things like that. But if it's connected to my home and the internet in my home, it should be able to send me an alert of some sort. So I don't need a full controller if the ATO is what I'm concerned about. Maybe you can talk to me and tell me an alert, say something's wrong with your ATO, check it out.
Yeah, you know, so like there is a ton of applications for that. So like most of these have some kind of audible alarm, like beep, you know, whatever. All right, but like if my tank's in my basement and I'm in a fish room, I'm never gonna hear that. I had to be down there to hear it, right? I actually had a friend that hooked up his Neptune Apex to all that stuff, and if something went off, it set off like a you know, blowhorn almost into his house, man. You would know for sure any nook or the cranny of this house that this tank, something's going on with the tank. Yeah. But even better, you know, or maybe more reasonable than that, is like just get an app, like a, you know, some kind of app or you know, email alerts or whatever. There's no reason that we can't develop an auto top off that tells you I failed. So I'm sitting in my you know, den or wherever I'm at in my house, and it says, hey dude, go check your auto top off.
Yeah, well, and built into that, since that might be a little far off, getting these things smart and connected to the internet. I mean, at minimum, what we can look for, like in 2020, is somebody to make an ATO that has like built-in leak sensors. So, Neptune ATK is one of them that you have the ability to plug in leak detection sensors if you have the whole kit. But I mean, even if I'm running any one of these, maybe they have a sensor in there that just kind of lays down on the surface, and it runs off of metal tabs on the bottom or whatever. Yeah, conductivity. And it tells the head unit, or it tells the controller, hey, I'm seeing water down here for whatever reason, I better shut myself off.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it, but there used to be a thing from the team, like they worked in conjunction with the Murloc team, but it was like a little valve that if the two little pads ever touched water anywhere, it would automatically turn the valve and it would snap open, right? It was run off of a couple of 9-volt batteries. It was super sweet. I don't know what happened to this thing. I begged them to, when they told me they were going to stop making it, to keep making it.
Yeah.
Because it was super, like it was like $50, and then like if all hell broke loose and everything failed, it would sense that water had hit the ground, and that it would just turn automatically. It doesn't have to hook up to a controller or anything. But I'm going to tell you right now that this thing,
$20.
$20. It's mechanical. Again, it's operated off of just a cotton pad that expands, and it'll flip the switch, and there you go. It's all done, and it just turns off your water, for you right there. So this is a great little redundancy thing in an environment where, the leak sensors from Neptune are a great option. If you have an aquarium controller and you don't use the leak sensors, like I don't think you're using your controller to its full availability, because we have boxes of water in our house, right? And something always goes wrong on a long enough timeline. Knowing about when that goes wrong is the difference between having to replace my floors and grabbing a mop.
Right.
Those are two very different things. And so if you already own like an Apex or whatnot, that is awesome. And again, part of their ATK auto top off is that feature. You can actually plug in leak sensors right to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to see the #1 unit that the reefing community votes for with their own dollars, as well as what we use here, you can head on right over here, check it out on the website, see what everybody's talking about, and we'll see you next week.